Welcome to TV, Tennessee Valley Church. This week we are at Santa Land in Elgin, Alabama. Why here? Well, because we're celebrating Christmas in March. Several years ago, when our kids were still teenagers and we were living in Virginia, there was one night that our daughter Brennan had a cheerleading event at James River High School. Grant, our youngest son, had a basketball game at Matoaka High School. Now, Matoaka High School is a long way from where we lived, and it's hard to find, especially at night. And this was winter, so it got dark early. We decided that I'd go with Brennan to her event, and Carrie and her friend Kathy would go to Grant's basketball game. At Matoaka High School, which is out in the county, and hard to find, especially at night. Trying to be helpful, I printed out directions for Carrie from MapQuest. Now, this was in the old days when everybody didn't have a GPS in their cars and on their phones and watches. MapQuest was, and still is, a website where you can type in the address you're leaving from and the address you're headed to and get really good directions. So I typed in our home address and the address of the high school, and I hit print. The printer spit out a page of directions, which I handed to Carrie and wished her well. An hour later, Brennan and I were having dinner at Outback Steakhouse when my cell phone rang. It was Carrie. "We're lost," she said. "The directions ended and we're not at the school." She asked where to go from there. "Well, ask somebody," I said. I didn't know where she was, and I couldn't tell her how to get to Matoaka High School. Well, they finally found the school and got to the game about halftime, and when Carrie got home, she was not exactly thrilled over the experience. A couple days later, I went to print something and realized there was no paper in the printer. I added paper, and immediately the printer began to print something. Out came page 2 of the directions to Matoaka High School. Back when I printed the directions to Matoaka High School, there had been only one piece of paper in the printer, and the directions were 2 pages long. The directions I handed to Carrie were good. They were completely accurate and trustworthy. There was simply more to come. The second page did not nullify or replace the first page. It fulfilled, it completed the first page. The first page was not wrong. The story was simply not complete. For 8 weeks here on TV Church, we've been telling the story found on page 1 of God's mission to the world. The story that began back with Abraham. It includes dark chapters like slavery in Egypt, wanderings in the wilderness, exile in Babylon. It includes wonderful chapters like a land of promise, the exodus from slavery, David killing Goliath. It's a terrific story. But without Jesus, the story is incomplete. Which brings me to our text for the day, Hebrews 1, verses 1 and 2. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son, whom He appointed heir of all things, and through whom He also made the universe. God's work in and through the people of Israel, the story we've been remembering for the past several weeks, is like the first page of MapQuest instructions. Today we turn to page 2. Gabriel, the angel, was dispatched to earth. "Greetings," Gabriel said to the teenaged Mary. "You're going to have a baby." "But I don't have a wedding ring," said Mary. "God's going to perform a miracle," Gabriel explained, "and nothing," he said, "is impossible with God." Mary answered, "Let it be to me just as you have said." Then Mary sang a beautiful song, drawing from the Hebrew Scriptures she'd been taught. One line in that song says, "God has helped His servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as He said to our fathers." Mary realized that this miracle birth was rooted in and a continuation of God's promise to Abraham. And just like that, we're back to where we began this sermon series. God's promise to Abraham in Genesis 12. It's all tied together, page 1 and page 2. Soon came news about the Roman census, and Joseph and Mary journeyed to Bethlehem, where Joseph's family was from. And there it was in the village of Bethlehem that all those hints, those foreshadowings, those prophecies and predictions we've been seeing for the last several weeks came to pass. Mary gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, a feeding trough. And heaven rang, and the angels sang, and the shepherds came, and the story of God's mission to the world turned to the next page. God the Son, second person of the Holy Trinity, of Father, Son, and Spirit, had taken on flesh and would dwell among us. As much human as if He were not God, as much God as if He were not human. Jesus was crawling, maybe even learning to walk, when the wise men, the Magi from the east, came to worship Him. In their efforts to find this young Messiah, they had asked around in Jerusalem, and King Herod, a jealous, paranoid, petty, and ruthless man, thus found out about this one the Jews would consider their king. Herod saw the baby as a potential rival, and Herod tried to kill him. Herod ordered all the infant boys 2 years old and younger in Bethlehem killed. Based on the size of Bethlehem, scholars estimate that meant the brutal deaths of 30 or 40 babies. Matthew 2 describes that darkest chapter of the Christmas story. The parents and grandparents of Bethlehem wailing so loudly they could be heard from a long way off. Herod didn't know it, but Joseph and Mary, warned by an angel in a dream, already had left with their infant king for Egypt. Jesus, Herod's target, was not killed. They stayed in Egypt until Herod went to meet his Maker, and an angel appeared to tell Joseph it was safe to return home. And Mary, Joseph and Jesus went to live in the town of Nazareth. Herod, as ruthless as he was actually but a small actor in a cosmic drama. The 12th chapter of the book of Revelation describes in dramatic language what was going on that first Christmas. I'm talking about Satan's attempt to destroy the baby born to Mary in Bethlehem. This is the way he described it. A dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns on each head, with a tail so vast it swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky, circled ominously, anticipating the birth of this baby. His intent was to devour the infant before it could breathe its first breath of this world's air. God stepped in and protected the infant from the dragon's evil schemes. The war between good and evil intensified. The relentless dragon continued to pursue this child king until, when it was obvious he would not destroy the baby, Satan declared war on all who would pledge allegiance to this baby. Pretty dramatic stuff. Of course, the book of Revelation utilizes lots of dramatic, figurative, poetic language because there are spiritual realities for which we simply have no everyday human vocabulary or language. But the message is clear. There was more going on than we generally celebrate at Christmas. Beyond the time and place we occupy, there was an unseen, otherworldly, supernatural, epic, cosmic battle going on between the redemptive love of God and the destructive hatred of the evil one. But Satan lost that battle over the infant Jesus and ultimately will lose the war. Still, he's fighting as if he had a chance. The Bible gives us very little information about those years between Jesus' infancy and the launch of His public ministry beginning at around the age of 30. We do know that when Jesus was 12, the family made the 65-mile trip each way from Nazareth to Jerusalem to visit the temple for the annual feast of Passover. After the celebration in Jerusalem, Joseph and Mary joined their caravan to return to Nazareth. They were a day into the journey home when Mary and Joseph realized Jesus was not with them. Panicking, they turned around and went back to look for him. Before we report Mary and Joseph to social services, let's remember that they were on a pilgrimage with other people, with Joseph and Mary possibly traveling with different groups and each thinking he was with the other. Which reminds me, Carrie and I got a phone call one day when I was a young pastor. We had just gotten home from the Sunday morning service at our church. Our friend Marilyn Ford called and asked, "Have you all forgotten something?" "No," we said. "Well," Marilyn answered, "we have Landon. You left him at church." He was 4. Carrie and I had driven separate cars, and I thought she had him, and she thought I had him, and the poor child was left at the church house. I know what you're thinking. Carrie should have been more on top of things, and I agree. Mary and Joseph turned back and found Jesus sitting safely and calmly in the temple, asking and answering questions among the religious scholars there. When Mary gently scolded Jesus, he responded, "Did you not know I had to be about my Father's business?" The story of the temple ends with verses 51 and 52 of Luke chapter 2. Then he went down to Nazareth with them, and he was obedient to them. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Or, as one translation has it, he was loved by God and by all who knew him. Of course, Jesus had political and religious enemies, but he gained the favor of those who knew him. Unfortunately, all too many Christians don't do so well in the gaining people's favor department. It's such a simple thing. If we Jesus followers were a more positive, yes, even likable bunch, then Jesus might have more friends. It's downright unchristian to be habitually disagreeable. It's downright unchristian to be a curmudgeon. Let's be kind. Let's be positive. Let's be nice. I must be about my Father's business, Jesus said at age 12 to Mary and Joseph. And about 18 years later, he left the life he knew to do just that. Matthew and Mark describe Jesus as both a carpenter's son and a carpenter, so he obviously worked in Joseph's carpenter shop. It's likely that Jesus took over Joseph's business upon Joseph's death. And then one day, Jesus knew. He just knew. He had fixed his last table, made his last chair. It was time to be about his Father's business. Jesus laid down his hammer and his chisel, hung the saw on the wall, put the plumb line away, stacked the lumber for the last time, breathed in the smell of wood, certainly relived the memories of Joseph teaching him the trade. He surely had a sit down with his mother, explained that it was time to leave for his public ministry. Now, Mary knew that day was coming from the time Gabriel announced she was going to have a baby boy, but she was still a mother. "Do you have to go?" she must have asked. "No," Jesus surely answered, "I don't have to, and yet I must." So here's my question for you. Are you willing to leave your carpenter's shop if God has called you to something else? We're going to talk about that when I come back.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till He appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world you in glorious morn. Fall on your knees. Oh, hear the angel voices. Oh, night divine. Oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine. Oh, night divine. Truly, He taught us to love one another. His law is love, and His gospel its peace. Chains shall He break, for the slave is our brother, and in His name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise His holy name. Oh, in Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise His name forever. His power and glory evermore proclaim. And oh, His power and glory evermore proclaim. His power and His glory evermore proclaim.
We often think about the Salvation Army during the Christmas season when we see the red kettle and hear the bell ringing, but truth is they work all year round to share the love of God and to help people in need. Major Jane May joins us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. We're real excited to be here.
The Salvation Army stays busy all year round.
Yes.
What are the ministries that you all do?
Well, there's the normal ones that you think of when you hear the Salvation Army. Of course, we think of Christmas, and you think about our family store, which, believe it or not, is a ministry, because while we receive donations and people come to purchase things from us, we can actually also give people clothes right out of there. They don't have to pay for them. They get to shop just like they're a regular customer and get clothes, things like that. So that's one ministry. We, of course, supply food for those who are falling short. And then for those who are homeless or find themselves in need, we do an evening meal every night. Anybody can come by and eat. We offer shelter overnight for those who need a place. And we have a life recovery center where we can help men get off of drugs and alcohol in our facility. And then, of course, we have regular church services every Sunday and Tuesday night. We offer a Bible study. We have ministries for women, we have ministries for men, and we have ministries for children. So we're busy all year round. Christmas is our biggest opportunity for anyone who wants to volunteer. We have several ways that you can volunteer. Of course, we always need help ringing ringing the bell. Whenever a group gets together, maybe a Sunday school class or maybe your office group, your Rotary, your service club, whatever, if you get together and you split the day between you, you really only have to stand outside for an hour, maybe two. We also have our Angel Tree, which is probably our best known ministry here. It's a great way for you to buy personally for a child. You come to our Angel Tree, you select a child off of the tree, which is a real child in our community. You buy specifically for that child, and then we get those gifts back to their family. Now, as you can imagine, that sounds simple, but it's a big undertaking. And I need lots of help and volunteers with that. We need people even to sit at our Angel Tree at the mall inside with great people watching opportunities.
drinking hot chocolate and
drinking hot chocolate and helping people. It's a great place to volunteer. So if you don't want to be outside ringing the bell, you can be inside the mall and sit at the tree and help us greet donors there. And we also need help as we get closer to the day of distribution with getting Angel Tree bags together. Last year we helped over 600 children receive Christmas, and we helped over 1,200 families in that regard. And so it's a big undertaking. It was the biggest Christmas that I personally have done, and we made it, but man, I can't wait for next Christmas to be able to tell everybody what we need and that people can come out and help us to make sure kids get a good Christmas. To me, that's the magic of it all, in that the donor is buying for a child they'll never know, or it could be their next door neighbor. Nobody knows, okay? But you're doing something for a child, and something big. I probably had at least 10 to 12 children ask for a bed for Christmas, a bed. And so when you see that bed come in through the door and that it's going home with another child who needs a bed, you don't think, we take those things for granted so often. Dressers, we had at least 3 or 4 dressers come in. Their family needed a dresser for their children. A lot of younger babies who needed just simply asking for diapers and wipes. All of those kinds of things. But then you get to see the cute clothes and the shoes that come in and the toys, and when a child requests something really special. And the bikes, the army of bikes that we had to give to children. And that's all because of the generosity of the community that we live in. And then the flip side of that is to be able to see mothers receive those toys and know that somebody who doesn't even know her or her children loved her enough, even though they didn't know her, that's that agape Jesus love, loved her enough to take care of her family for Christmas. I love my job, and Christmas is hard and it's tiring, but it's my favorite day is distribution day, watching it all come together and seeing how God works out every little thing. There's always these little miracles that take place in the Angel Tree workshop every year because God is in control of it all. And our prayer is that as people give to the Salvation Army and we then get to give to those families, that they know it comes from God. They know it comes because of our love of Jesus.
Jane, thank you so much. Thank you and your husband. You guys have dedicated your life to helping others and helping spread Jesus' love.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus left the security of the carpenter's shop to be about his Father's business. He left the familiarity of his life to do and be what he was created and called to do and be. So I ask again, are you willing to leave your carpenter shop if God has called you to do something else? Are you willing to leave what is secure and familiar to do and be what you were created and called to do and be? To be clear, if God called you to be a carpenter, then you be the best carpenter you can be, or teacher, or engineer, or bricklayer, or whatever it is. But if that's just what you're comfortable with, and you sense down deep that God has created you for something else, then I ask again, are you willing to leave your carpenter's shop if God has called you to something else? But that might be risky, you say. Yes, it might. But living the life you were created to live is worth that risk. The wonderful story we've been following for the last few weeks began with a risk. God said to Abraham, "Leave your country and your extended family and go to a land I will show you." That was risky business, but it changed the course of history. So I ask you again, are you willing to leave your carpenter's shop if God has called you to something else?
my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my wisdom and thou my true word. I ever with thee and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, O bright heaven's sun. Lord of my
Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Boone, Minister of Missions at First Baptist Huntsville. To be a follower of Jesus means that you're on mission. God calls all of us to join our hearts with God's heart for the world. I hope that you'll join us as we seek to be the church in the heart of the city, with a heart for the region and for the world. You can visit the missions page on our website to find different ways to serve right where you are, or you can join us as we travel outside of our city and throughout our world. You can also email me at tim@fbchsv.org. I'd love to hear from you.